All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free, 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all major social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website where you can listen to the X Zone 724-365, www.xzoneradiotv.com. Our topic tonight is dreams. Everyone has a dream, no matter what religious philosophy you believe in, no matter who you are, no matter what race or religion. Everyone has dreams. Some are prophetic, some are horror dreams. In some dreams you find yourself running, in other dreams you find yourself falling. What is behind the physiology and the psychology of dreams? Well, joining me tonight is Craig Webb. He's the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal. Their website is www.dreams.ca. And Craig Webb, welcome back to the X Zone, my friend.
Hey, great to be with you again, Rob. Thanks again for the return invitation. Like a positive recurring dream here, right?
That's right. And for the listeners who may not have had the pleasure of listening to or seeing you before, Craig, where did your interest in dreams come from?
Well, I guess originally it came from a powerful near drowning because I was a good little scientist, kind of minding my own business. Right. I guess I was asking this question, how does the world work? Sure. What's behind things? But I hadn't really focused on any psychology or anything. And maybe I remembered one dream a month, but after getting kind of stuck under a raft without enough air and, you know, kind of having this near death, near drowning, I started remembering up to about 10 dreams a day, which was pretty shocking because I had maybe one a month before that. Wow. And then started having clear dreams of the future, like pretty specific events that I told people about before the events. It was way outside of my physics training, so I guess it sort of blew my mind in a few different ways. But I, like a good little scientist, I started recording it, and I guess what was first kind of an intrigue became a passion, and then I grew it into a profession here. So I didn't throw out the science, but I added in what I now call subjective science, lots of first-person experience, which dreams are really the core process of.
So when we look back in history, Craig, when was the first analysis of dreams done? Was it done in the days of Hippocrates? Was it done in the day of the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans? Where did dream analysis start?
Probably as early as people could start communicating. I mean, even some of the little pictures or, I guess, the drawings on the different caves, the Lascaux in France and thing, may be connections with the beginnings of language and beginning of dreamt scenarios. It may also be back then that they didn't use the words and then the thoughts that go with them. Today that we say the difference between life and a dream. They might have had less distinction. For example, if you ask a little kid, even nowadays, oh, you were with your friend Johnny yesterday? I didn't see you even go out of your room. No, I was with Johnny enjoying it. And you say, oh, that must have just been a dream. But the little kid then later, let's say by age 4, 5, 6, learns, oh, okay, that experience, which was very real for them, wasn't as much of a real experience in the waking traditional taboo. So when we say interpret a dream and experience a dream, it might have been different back then. But I think started with Babylonians, Egyptians, definitely lots of accounts. The hieroglyphics itself was almost a dreamy visual language. So. And then lots of accounts, more starting with the Greeks and lots since then too.
And of course, in the Bible, everyone has read about Ezekiel's wheel and his dream that he had. And is it possible that a lot of these prophecies that the ancients were talking about were actually dreams?
Well, Jacob, Joseph, a lot of them. I mean, the big one that many people might be familiar with, the Pharaoh's dream, one of the most famous precog dreams that saved probably millions of lives. Yeah, prophetic. Probably the interest back then was in practical ways to help our lives. Nowadays, we're interested in personal growth, which might have been part of it. But for example, if I'm a pharaoh and I have a dream, then it becomes more of a practical item, because what do? I don't necessarily go around healing people, etc. So I don't look so much at psychology, but I'll look at it, I'll interpret it, I'll use the perspective of, hey, what was this? What would this mean in terms of actions I can take as the king, as the pharaoh? And so as he dreamt, what was it? 7 big stalks of wheat, rich grains being swallowed by 7 small ones, and then 7 rich calves and healthy cattle, etc., being eaten up by small, scrawny ones. He eventually pulled Joseph, his interpreter, out of the prison to finally find out, oh, that means 7 years of super abundant harvests, and then 7 years of famine. So act on it now. Start storing up maybe 10% of the grain.
All right, Craig, we've got to take a commercial break. Please stand by. Exonation. Craig Webb is our guest. We're talking to Craig from Montreal. He's the director of the Dream Foundation, www.dreams.ca. And Craig and I will be back on the other side of this commercial break in 2 minutes as the X Zone continues from our broadcast center here in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.
Sounds kind of dreamy.
Yeah, it does. We're going to have to start that one over. Good old Windows 8.
No worries. No stress on my account. I actually, my 230 was cleared out today, so
Okay. All right, stand by. Here we go again. 14 seconds. 5 seconds. Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. Rob McConnell here. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide, toll-free 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV, and our main website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Craig Webb. He is the director of the Dreams Foundation in Montreal, Quebec. Their website is www.dreams.ca. And Craig, before we went to the commercial break, we were talking about dreams in the Bible, and I would imagine throughout different mythologies there have been other significant dreams that have played a major part in the history of that ancient culture. But here we are in the 21st century. What do we know about dreams? What is the physiology behind a dream?
Well, research is always ongoing. The Dreams Foundation works in collaboration with Montreal's Dream and Nightmare Lab at Sacré-Coeur Hospital. So different studies going all the time, sometimes psychology, so statistics, which, it's a little bit tough to analyze content of dreams without doing statistics because it's subjective, but also sometimes physiology. Some of the more recent interesting physiology has been showing the different brain parts that light up. We've actually been able to get people to sleep during their dreaming, during their sleep in MRIs.
Right.
So you can get more or less a pretty clear picture of what's going on in the brain during different phases, showing dreaming sleep, the different sleep cycles, and lucid dreaming is an interesting topic too, with some new research and discoveries going. But actually just getting a clearer picture of, I guess, more specifics about what's kind of been known. We go into this deep sleep cycle, and about every 90 minutes we come back towards waking, and we kind of get closer and closer to waking until morning comes, in which case we fully wake. Wow. But they're about 90-minute cycles, so that's the important thing to know. And maybe practical to turn that into something useful if people want to recall dreams or try some of the techniques or have some of the experience we talked about today. actually just try to notice in those last few cycles, there's a much larger percentage of these visual REM dreams. So if you want to do recall or lucidity or have maybe premonitions, just check out those last hour and a half of your morning, just before you wake up.
Now, I understand that certain pharmaceutical drugs as well as food can either hinder or help a dream state.
Yeah, anything that affects our physiology. So even temperature is actually a pretty strong one. Temperature of the room. I'll just mention it because it might be important for some parents here. It seems with young children who have night terrors that actually just cooling off the body a little bit, just less sheets or a little bit of a window open, a crack or whatever, can actually help a lot with reducing night terrors, which is usually more upsetting for the parents, but still upsetting.
Sure.
So that's kind of things, physiology. And then foods, definitely our diet, medications. Some medications will actually limit our dreaming. So even the cycle I talked about gets cut off or shunted or kind of squashed. Different medications, depends. They may be necessary, but ideally long-term we like to get empowered, solve the source cause, and then maybe get free from meds and start a smart diet, exercise, etc.
Is there a difference between a nighttime dream and daydreaming, or is it daydreaming just a waking dream?
Daydreaming. Probably because a lot of people have different interpretations of the word. Let's just see, what would be your answer to that question out of interest?
Well, you've
had experiences of both, right?
Sure. I would say that it's a waking dream. You're being able to split your consciousness in half, where one side of your consciousness is actually aware of what's going on, and the other side of your consciousness is actually processing something, giving you a daytime dream or a waking dream.
And have you noticed anything practical in those moments, or it's just kind of imaginary wanderings?
Practical.
Like insightful intuition, basically?
No, problem solving.
Okay, problem solving, which might be intuitive, sort of lateral thinking rather than just the linear force the answer.
Right.
Yeah, well, you're probably tuning into what physiology seems to show, and across the night and even during the daytime, we have this official waking point, but it's not obvious. If you're there in the afternoon kind of slumped and trying to stay awake at work, you might be pretty close to dreaming from the brainwave and the physiology point of view. So there's lots of states and variations, and that's why I said before, people will define them differently. Probably there's a little bit more alpha if you're going into a daydream of just looking out into space, which means on the graph you'll have a little bit of raised 8 to 12 hertz there.
Right.
You could just say at peace, kind of disconnected, associating, free thinking, that kind of thing.
Speaking about peace, when somebody starts to meditate, does this bring them to the brink of the dream state?
Another definition question. The electrodes show that it's starting to bridge into more theta, delta, some of the slower waves that are associated with sleep when deep meditators are in their state. Just going in briefly, like a visualized meditation, so if it's an active kind of guided meditation, there'll probably be more alpha, which that's sort of a quasi half state. In fact, you can notice this interesting thing. Just anybody can try this, or you can try this. Just lie in your bed, and the moment that you close your eyes, this is waking up or sleeping, you'll feel a pretty deep shift to your whole body physiology, level of peace, your emotions, and then just open them. Like 10 seconds is enough, and you'll feel kind of a quick shift. And it's not just the eyes, the whole brain waves are affected. There's a huge big spike of these alpha 8 to 12. They come as soon as eyes are closed for most people. So you could stay you could stay in that state, or you could kind of let it slip into a deep meditation where there's no presence, no awareness, and you'll see more delta, more theta. Pretty close to sleep in that case, yeah.
Craig Webb is our special guest. He is the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal. Their website is www.dreams.ca. Craig, everybody has had that dream where they're falling. How does this fit into the dream psychology, if you'd like to use
cosmology of what's a dream? Well, that's one of the universal archetypes. I bet you a bunch of the listeners here have had that one. Or they've had a variation. I actually look at these kind of as the flip side of a coin. They've had a flying dream. And you say, wait a minute, that's not the same dream. No, but the key difference really, if you kind of think about it logically, is really just maybe the feeling in the dream. Mostly falling dreams are kind of scary. So flying, falling, I kind of think of as one of the worldwide themes, and it's the most common theme when we look at research. Over 90% of people have had that at some point. Falling itself is usually akin to out of control, losing presence, coming into the world. Kids have that dream more. Usually it's a childhood dream. So, losing the freedom, the perspective, the lightness, gaining responsibility, growing into the world, etc. And sometimes it can be a little more specific depending on the dream, the time, the dreamer. Doesn't have to be negative, though. I'll just say Jennifer Love Hewitt, our ghost whisperer girl, she was able to turn the falling dream from terror into landing softly on bouncing clouds and kind of floating down to earth. So turning falling into almost flying. That would be one of the goals for any of those fallers out there.
Dreams where people wake up in the middle of the night, they're sweating, their heart is racing, they've just had a dream that has scared the bejesus out of them. Where does this come from? What part of their psyche does this actually come from? Is this a hidden fear?
It could well be. It could be a trauma from the past. A lot of veterans, people who've been in accidents recently might have these kind of reliving the emotions that they weren't able to integrate during that event. There's a lot of classes of nightmares. It could be a physiology-based dream. We were talking about food a little bit ago. It might have been, the big Chinese food at midnight that you had. It's triggering off some kind of body reaction. It's not really worth interpreting other than, if you have the night terror or nightmare, don't have the Chinese food at midnight.
I guess not.
And then again, it might be a warning. Something coming from deeper in the psyche, maybe what I call tuning into the collective unconscious, or tuning into other events in the future, at a distance, and other people's thoughts. And sort of a warning, like this is a possible or a likely future according to your choices and current events, and we'd like this not to happen. So we're kind of telling you, like the oil light on your car, sure. Warning, warning. So if you get the warning, get the message, change it, then hopefully you don't have that event in your life.
So basically what we're saying, Craig, is that some dreams are the brain's way of communicating with you in a way that you could understand what may be going on within your own body.
Yeah. Sometimes simple physiology, and sometimes more subtle stuff, subjective, future choices, future events, what are coming to, or past traumas that we don't always have our conscious on. But definitely important to listen. That's why I say nightmares, lucky you. People can check that article out at the website. It gets a lot of attention and people really appreciate it. Not lucky you because we want you to keep having them, but lucky you if you listen, get the message and act on it and change it.
Has there ever been a study done with people who are in a terminal state of their life, whether it's from cancer or some other devastating disease, as to what kind of dreams they have and how their dreams compare to those of healthy people?
There's been some, and there's a little bit of mixed research. Obviously, it's a little bit of a delicate time. There's certain themes or archetypes, getting ready for the bus, getting ready for the boat, usually something like a boat or a train, sometimes leaving on the journey, crossing a body of water, that kind of thing. There seems to be just statistically an increase in dreaming, depending on the age a little bit and the population, etc. But an increase in dreaming. In other words, some of the emotional issues are getting worked out here. We're starting to transition to the next level, or however you want to believe, but we're tuning into the level of what's subjective experience, which is dreams.
You see, my personal belief, Craig, is that death is just another side of life, this living experience. To me, death is the cocoon phase. As a caterpillar lives its life to a certain point, it then builds a cocoon to become a butterfly. And this is what I think and I believe happens at the point of death. We're going into the cocoon stage, getting ready for our next appearance in wherever it is we appear, in whatever form we appear in. But I believe there's much more to life and death than we presently understand.
Yeah, sounds good. And I think it was Shakespeare who called dreams are death's little brother. In other words, you can practice. If you're a Tibetan monk, you might want to practice dying as you fall asleep, not because it's macabre or you're trying to do something dark, but because you're trying to find the peace that when it actually happens, you can go into the cocoon very Zen style. Actually, Rob, you might be interested in Gennadius's dream. Do you know of that one?
Let's hold on to that dream until we come back from this news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Craig Webb is my special guest this hour, www.dreams.ca. Craig is the director in Montreal of the Dreams Foundation. And once again, his website is www.dreams.ca. Now, if you've had a dream that you'd like to share with us, send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or share it with us online at either Twitter, Facebook, or any other major social networking at X Zone Radio TV. Craig and I will be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Dreams, the topic of today's adventure here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Joining me via Skype is Craig Webb. He is the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal. His website is www.dreams.ca. And I'll bet you've had a dream that you're saying, geez, I wonder what it could be. Are these dream books real? Can they really help me understand what dreams are about? Let's ask Craig. So, Craig, what is the deal about dream books and all these different dream definitions?
Oh, the dictionaries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty popular online. I guess lots of keyword searches for dream dictionary. I like to encourage people to look for themes or the archetypal kind of common dreams rather than a specific A equals B every time. And there's good because every symbol can have a universal kind of connection, like fire, change, transformation. And then a very personal, specific to you in your life. It's not the same as somebody else, like a fire in a fireplace, not the same as fire raging in your living room or something,
Right.
Or in a forest or whatever. So to look at the generic universal aspects, but on dreams.ca, we put a bit of a universal symbol online dictionary. People can check that out. And if you join the mailing list, you can send a bunch of live interpreted dreams. That'll be a free podcast for you.
Okay, now, what is the most popular dream that you hear about?
Well, actually, if I lump them together, the flying, falling one we talked about is the most common worldwide theme. The one that seems the scariest, that people are really like, and really don't want to have, is the teeth falling out or teeth crumbling dream, or bloody teeth. You ever had that one, Rob?
Never.
That's
Thankfully,
good.
I
People
should
say
say
that's
thankfully.
about like the worst one.
Wow. I remember talking to you once when we had our caller call in asking what it meant that they found themselves standing in front of a group of people bare naked.
Oh, bare naked.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the Canadian rock group there.
No,
Bare
it
Naked
wasn't,
Ladies.
yeah.
No, that's a pretty common theme. I'd say about 1 out of 3 people, 30 or 40% of people have dreamt that at some point. And that ties pretty commonly with a universal lesson, not 100%, but if people are in the naked or scantily dressed, a little bit unclothed, basically embarrassed kind of dream, they can ask the question, hey, how come all the other people in the dream aren't noticing? Which, if they're listening now, they go, oh yeah, the other people don't notice. It's because in your life, you're embarrassed, you're feeling exposed, naked, and people aren't noticing. In other words, don't have so much self-consciousness. Just trust yourself, be confident, and the dream will probably go away too.
Another dream that you and I discussed was, I remember this gentleman calling up, and he dreamt that his penis fell off.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
But it might be something along the lines of power. That would be the male phallus symbol connected with power, the male out there archetype. Could be a physiology dream. Don't, when the body shows up in dreams, or even food items or medications or exercise poses, you might take it as a very practical device. Go get a quick check. In this case, we hope that it wasn't too physiological for that gentleman.
Craig Webb is our guest this hour, Exo Nation. He is the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal, www.dreams.ca. Craig, what do you do to help someone have better dreams or better recall? Because, dreams, it seems that you dream them, you live them, and then as you wake up, they just disappear.
Yeah, they're a different state. There's sort of a subtle memory operating, a different brainwave frequency just when we are on the wake-sleep border, recalling dreams. So just try to slow it down. Just try to slow the waking up process down a little bit. In other words, try not to wake up to an alarm, because the noise kind of blows our attention away from the dream.
Right.
Very strong to help with recall is actually keep our eyes closed, because the visual is very strong for changing brainwave frequencies. Or if we open them, just close them again. And then probably the most important is actually the whole blood flow in our brain and our touch sensation, balance, etc. Try to stay in the exact same body position you woke up in. Or if you rolled over, then just roll back.
In the alien abduction scenario, psychologists and doctors claim that a person is actually going through the old hag syndrome, or they're awake but they can't move their bodies. The hormone that is secreted to make sure that a person, when they dream, they don't reenact what they're dreaming, hasn't worn off yet. What is your take on this as a dream expert?
Yeah, that sounds pretty accurate, Rob. I guess you've had some well-researched guests here. A little part of the brain here in the pons and the brain stem has a little switch of nerves. I don't know how many, maybe 10, 20,000 nerves, depending on the person. But that's what turns off our muscles or turns them on when we wake up. Yeah, and if we didn't have our muscles turned off during dreams, that's bad.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be acting out all your dreams. But in some cases, this is usually called sleep paralysis, being hagged, sometimes alien abduction, or just kind of evil presence in the room. Something like that is sort of a bridge starting to go into that. We can start to say, oh, wait a minute, that little switch that usually turns back on my muscles hasn't turned on yet. And here I am starting to wake up or lying in bed and I can't move. Usually people slip into fear. My little logical thing I say to folks is, hey, when have you ever had a chance to relax this well? You're in bed and you can't even move.
Wow.
So kind of accept it, move into the fear. It could be a lesson, maybe a little chance to even face the fear of death. A springboard for lucidity. This is going to be a really benefit if people want to explore conscious dreaming. Actually use that state to waver on the edge and then go back into a dream consciously and fly or try something, ask something that a question you want to have answered. So you can turn it really positive.
How come some people have black and white dreams and other dreams are in color?
Yeah, well, usually not the whole dream when people say that. When I ask them, I say, oh, about your color dreams, is everything in color or specific items? And when they really think about it, usually kind of specific elements of the dream. Not 100%, but usually specific. So color as a symbolism. And it has different feelings, emotions associated with it, sometimes very specific personal symbols that we couldn't know or tell here. But something like red is almost always warning, attention, catch your attention, red light or blood, something, So, and other colors can have elements. So it usually just means more vivid recall and maybe some useful things to look at if you're in the interpretation vein.
Children have dreams. Adults have dreams, teenagers have dreams, senior citizens have dreams. As we get older, do dreams become more vivid? Do they last longer? Or does the vividness of a dream and the significance of a dream stay with us from crib to casket?
Well, we have, in terms of significance, I think that depends on the person a little bit, depending how much they imply the importance of dreams in their life or take advantage. But usually, almost everybody's had something very strong of the dreamlike nature or nightmare or that sort of thing at some point in their life, and it sticks with them pretty strong through most of their life. In terms of actual frequency of dreaming, there are different cycles, different ages, and also different populations can really have much more recall or a bit less. It seems to generally be tied with sort of a learning level in our life, because one of the key functions of dreams, scientifically proven here with different studies, multiple studies, shows that when we learn new things, physical skills, new information, memorization, new emotional lessons, watching movies, etc., whatever, relationships, we're going to have a lot more dreaming. We're integrating the knowledge, the gifts, the experience. So as we age, there's often a little bit less, and probably there's less that's new in our life, something like that.
Craig, on this show, we've talked many times to many people about past lives. We've had people who have come on the air who've told us about past life regression that they've gone that they've gone through with a registered and qualified hypnotherapist. Is there a connection between dreams and a person's past lives? If in fact past lives are real?
Yeah, well, some of it's an interpretation. Again, what's a past life? My view is kind of the simultaneous experience of a larger being or a larger self, but spread across this dimension that we call time. We think of as a linear thing, so we say the past.
Right.
But I use that interpretation a little bit so that you feel that you might have more power over the past than if it was just over. Because actually, I believe we can affect past selves and future selves with decisions now. So slightly different framework, but definitely hypnotherapists have shown that we can tune into actual physical experiences, provable things. People want to check out some of the examples. I really like James Leninger. It's a YouTube video of a little boy who tracked about 10 or 15 pretty specific key pieces of data from his early night terrors up to about age 4 or 5, which is usually when night terrors end. And his father tracked specific things like his, co-pilot's name and specific things to learn that his night terrors were related to a pilot who went down in World War II in a specific plane with a specific hit on the engine that there was no other way for the little boy to know about. So people can check that out and see that, yeah, some of these things are provable and many of them aren't. They might just come into our whole makeup emotionally, but the lessons are still clear. So I think if people look at kind of the key themes that spread across months, or maybe even years if you track your dreams, you'll see stuff that's probably been important in other lives and still important now, otherwise you wouldn't be dreaming about it.
Tell me, has anyone ever in recorded history died of a dream?
That's a tough one, because who are we to interview the dead person to prove it? Interesting question. It's sort of if a tree falls in the forest kind of.
Right.
I would say that people die in their sleep and they may have been dreaming at the time, so it's a question of cause and effect. I don't think it's the dream that killed them necessarily. So the old wives' tale, if you die falling, that's not true. I have lots of people, and myself included, have lots of interesting death experiences in dreams, and here I am to tell about it. But yeah, people die in their sleep. I wouldn't go into fear about it, but it's quite possible. In fact, might be a pleasant way to go.
As an expert who's been studying dreams for many years, you've talked to thousands of people about their dreams. What has been your conclusion based on your scientific experience, your scientific knowledge, as well as the experience that you've gained from all the people that you've talked to? What is the number one reason why we dream?
Number one reason? I would say evolution. Really to our personal growth, our growth as a species, learning, protection. So survival and evolution are two really big ones. Learning is actually a subset of evolution, our personal growth for tasks, skills, but emotionally in our lives. And then if I was going to say it in terms of the most important aspect of why we dream, and that's more of a personal interpretation, is to master these life lessons, really the big learnings, emotionally, socially, maybe career-wise, creative expression, whatever, that are different, a little bit different for people, but there's probably about a dozen universal ones across the board here. So really look at where's the big nugget and lesson, and again, those recurring themes should show that.
Well, let's look at this another way. If dreaming is part of the processing of data that the mind has to go through, the purging of the data that we collect on a minute-by-minute basis, or let's call it the defragging of the human brain. When you're asleep at night, what is the percentage of brain defrag compared to brain dream?
Well, there's definitely a consolidation of memory. Some of it's going to be subjective to say, well, was there value in that I dreamt about a few things yesterday or a few days ago, or was it just sort of processing emotionally and storing, compressing the data? That's going to be subjective to some degree. But there's interesting studies that do show that certain REM cycles, in other words, these 90-minute circadian rhythms I mentioned, actually have certain elements or age ranges of our life that are more prominent. So that's pretty interesting. For example, like second REM period might have a lot more childhood dreams, which probably has not much to do with sort of incorporating memories, because it's been a long time. And yet we still have them currently about those ages. So that leans a little bit more towards the life lessons and that we're still learning, that we were learning as a child, some of the feelings you might have. This is a rough estimate, and it's really an interpretation question, but I'd say somewhere around the 1/3 defrag and then 2/3 really value worth looking at.
What happens if a person doesn't dream?
The doesn't dream question. Well, we have the experience of not having dreams, and then we have the physiology of not dreaming, which are different, right?
Okay, let's have the physiology of not dreaming.
The physiology.
Yeah.
People who are sleeping in a sleep lab with electrodes on all show similar circadian rhythms unless they've had, a bottle in front of me or a frontal lobotomy. If they've had brain surgery or certain drugs, and alcohol being one, bottle in front of me, they actually won't have the same sleep cycles. But otherwise, everybody pretty much has the exact same sleep cycles. But even if woken up during these visual, active dreaming periods, there's a very small percentage of people who say that they don't remember any dreams. Less than 2% of people who don't remember dreams. So very small, but it's possible. Maybe they just either don't really accept that view, or they actually don't have a subjective experience of dreaming, even though the physiology is doing the same thing.
All right. Now, who dreams more, men or women?
On general, I think women sort of report more dreams, have more interest in dreams. Probably changes quite a bit culture-wise, so it ends up being belief systems. And then the themes, the elements, the types of dreams, the content will vary quite a bit between males and females.
Really?
Females, women often dream about bodies of water, emotions, relationships. Men have more dramatic dreams, more killings, stabbings, upsetting, running, chase, that kind of thing. So a little more action-oriented. But it does change on culture, age range, etc.
Yeah, another popular dream that we've heard about here, Craig, is the dream of people running, but they're not getting anywhere.
Oh yeah, stuck in slow-mo or Jello. You had that
Exactly.
one before?
Yeah.
And in your dream, are you unable to like move or shout or speak?
I've had that too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's slight variation. Part of it could be akin to what we spoke about a little bit before, the sleep paralysis. You know, our little muscle of being able to speak and move isn't quite on yet. Most people seem to associate it with sort of the thematic is almost the same as the wordplay. Hey, I'm unable to move. I'm unable to speak my truth.
Sure.
Where in my life am I not moving forward? Where in my life am I feeling stuck or not speaking out, etc.?
Well, I know where I am in my life right now. I've got to take another commercial break. Stand by, Craig. Exonation, Craig Webb is our guest. And Craig is with the Dream Foundation in Montreal, Quebec. His website is www.dreams.ca. And we'll be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone with our guest Craig Webb talking about dreams. I'd like to hear your dreams. Send them to me, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Dreams. The only difference between a dream and reality in my book is just simply do it. But each and every night, people have dreams. Some are prophetic, some are scary, some are sensual, some are sexual. But each person has a dream. As we were talking with Craig Webb, who is the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal, Quebec, each dream means something specific to the person. If one person talks about horses in their dreams, it could be totally different from another person's meaning of horses in their dreams. And Craig, you've got some very interesting teleconferences coming up in the near future. Tell our listeners about them.
Yeah, well, one of the offerings that we like to empower people with is all the free info on the website at dreams.ca. Check that out. Lots of articles, techniques, tips. But for people who want to go a bit deeper, more, and also in a fun social atmosphere, kind of riffing off each other with psychic dreams almost every time, I mean, every week. I offer online classes that are very interesting. So once a week we speak and meet and share PowerPoint and things like that. And then during the week, everybody does an experiment. It's very empowering based. So that starts in about a week. Send in an email soon or contact us at dreams.ca if you want to know about that, because there's a few preparations before. But we share incredible stuff sometimes on interviews like this and during the classes that I'd like to offer one tip for listeners here. So if they don't have the time or maybe not the means right now, they can really get the gift of some of the things we found over many years. And that would be to help people understand their dreams a little better, because they say, yeah, but what's that all about? We'll kind of think of this very universal and probably not spoken about too much technique, that the feeling, the physical and sort of sensory in our body, but more the emotional feeling in our dream, is actually kind of like the Rosetta Stone connecting the language of dreams up to waking.
Okay.
Or links the worlds together. So if we're not really sure what does the whole dream mean, just try to ask a simple question. Hey, where's the feeling from the dream? Where's that in my life right now or in the last few days? And you may well get right away what the dream's about, and then you can fill in the smaller details. So the feeling's pretty important.
Craig, we're coming down to the end of this interview rather fast. We have less than 2 minutes. One of the questions that I find fascinating, that I like asking you, is can two people meet in the same dream and consciously remember the connection the day after?
Yeah, right. Just like we do here in Waking Consensus Reality, right?
Basically.
Yeah, it's not always the same. There's mutual theming. I had a very strong experience of one of those this week. I woke up dreaming the word umbaba.
Umbaba.
Which I didn't know what it was. I was just like, okay. And it came with a little melody that was very African music. But the technique that day for the teleclass was Google the word, which I did. And it turns out it's a magical city of copper in Africa, or imaginary city in Africa, underground, etc., with reptilian creatures. And one of the other teleclass participants visited a copper city underground with reptilian creatures the same night. Wow. Which, just, I guess, statistics-wise is very rare. So we had the same theme, but not a visual meeting. But I've seen, a little bit more rare, but cases where people have like two viewpoints. So it's quite possible. Inception style, right?
As always, Craig, you and I have got to say so long for tonight, my friend. Quickly, give our listeners your contact information.
Okay, well, visit dreams.ca for lots of empowering articles and tips and techniques, and join the mailing list for some free podcasts. And craigwebb.ca, you can learn more about the teleclasses also.
Craig, take care of yourself, my friend. Always a great pleasure talking to you. Exonation, Craig Webb has been my guest this hour. He is the director of the Dream Foundation in Montreal. If you'd like to find out more about dreams, how they can enhance your life, how you can use dreams to your advantage, what your dreams mean, visit www.dreams.ca. That's www.dreams.ca. I'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away.